this. I've been getting it since a toddler. I keep dollars on my head. Been a real one is my motto. Handle my problems, I ain't scared.
Yo, welcome back, Pacer Nation, Pacer Station fans everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Now, today we got a very special video. I'm Big Pace at Cam Major Sports on Twitter, here with Coach Jay. Coach Jay, how you been, brother?
Doing very well. I've been active on my YouTube channel. There's a lot of good rumors out there, and sometimes it's hard to figure out what's real and what isn't, but it's always fun to speculate.
100%. 100%. And tonight's draft is going to be one full of, I think, many surprises and many I think there's going to be a lot of movement, especially from what Woj said last night in tonight's draft. So I wanted to go ahead and get a little Pacer Station pre-draft special going. We're going to talk about what we think might go down tonight's draft, mainly the first round, where we see the Pacers maybe moving up, possible trades we can see happening, and what will be happening on the trade market overall. So I'll start with a question kind of outside of Pacers basketball before we get into the moves they could possibly make, simply because they don't have a first-round pick. Coach Jay, what do you see happening with the first 2 or 3 picks in the draft come tonight for the Timberwolves,
Honestly,
the Warriors, and the Hornets?
Well, I think the top 3 picks are going to stay as is, especially whoever has number 1. It's pretty much a done deal at this point that Anthony Edwards from Georgia will be going number 1 in the draft.
Right.
And if that's the case, whoever drafts him is going to stay put. I don't see there being any movement there. Other than Edwards, there's a lot that can happen because he really, to me, is the only game changer in this year's draft. Is it LaMelo Ball? I get all the brothers confused.
Yeah, that's LaMelo. LaMelo's in this year's draft.
Yeah, I'm still skeptical of him, not because of his ability, but because of where he'll end up.
Right.
Because I think Lonzo still has untapped potential, but he's coming off the bench. You know, he was drafted by, at the time, a bad organization in the Lakers. When he was drafted, I'm pretty sure Jim Buss, they were still dealing with him, and Genie had not taken over yet, and there was still a lot of turmoil there. I really thought he would take off in New Orleans, and I just didn't think Gentry gave him enough minutes.
Right.
So a lot. Other than Anthony Edwards, I don't really see anybody in this year's draft who's going to blow you away unless they get into a really good situation.
And that's how I feel about LaMelo. I do think Anthony Edwards is easily the best prospect in this draft. I think he can be a poor man's Harden for a few years and blossom into an all-star eventually. He scores at all 3 levels. He's a great player, especially offensively. But with LaMelo, I see superstar potential in LaMelo Ball. But like you said, it really depends on the situation he ends up in. I don't think LaMelo's the kind of guy that you draft to fit a system or to play, be a role player in any way. If you draft LaMelo, you're going to want him to be your guy. It's just the kind of player he is. He's not a guy that wants to share the ball a lot. And when he does, it's fantastic. His passes are amazing, but he takes a lot of outlandish shots. He's going to be your main ball carrier, or ball handler. I mean, for whatever team drafts him. I feel like I don't think he'll be a good player. Trying to throw him into a role. How do you feel about that?
I think he's going to need a situation where he gets a lot of shots, he gets a lot of minutes to develop. Right. We've seen over the years there have been guys who have been drafted into situations where they just don't get the shots and they don't get their usage rate is just not high enough to get max potential.
Right.
The best example I can come up with that Pacer fans would remember is Jermaine O'Neal. He was drafted by the Portland Trail Blazers and really had to play behind 3 other guys. He had to play if he was going to play the 4 spot, he had to play behind Brian Grant and Rasheed Wallace.
Right.
And if he was going to play the 5, he had to play behind Sabonis. But you noticed as soon as he got to the Pacers and was playing 35 minutes a night and was getting shots, he developed into a guy who, 4 years later would finish 3rd in the MVP voting. So, unless you're a Dwayne Wade, LeBron, or Carmelo type of prospect, you have fit is everything. And this year's draft is where you're going to find out who the good organizations are and who the bad organizations are. Because we didn't have a draft combine. Most teams did not have individual workouts, and there was no March Madness. So,
right.
This is where teams are going to figure out what their scouting department's made of.
100% they are. I'm not sure if you've done a lot of scouting on the players in this year's draft, especially at the top. But if the Pacers were to make a blockbuster trade into the top 10, do you have any idea of what kind of player we might be looking for if we were to trade up? And who do you think we might be willing to give up?
Well, if the Pacers plan on moving Oladipo, which I don't see happening, then I would look for them to move into the top 10. But to be honest with you, the only thing, if the Pacers do trade up and get a pick in the first round at all, what I would like to see them do is go get an athletic wing, similar to like Anunoby with Toronto Raptors, just another physical wing who can guard. The Pacers, under Bird, passed time and time again on guys like that.
Right.
So,
and I think I think that's a consensus amongst most of the fans I've spoke to about the draft so far. Is we all want a wing player, specifically one that can match up with another team's one of another team's main scoring threats. A guy like an Anunoby, like you said, because we got guys like T.J. Warren and McDermott who both played some of the four this year, but both of those guys are mainly offensive guys. You're not going to see those guys popping out on defense. So I completely agree. I would want.
We need defenders.
Right, for sure. I would love to see a 3-and-D guy, because that in today's NBA, those guys are very, very valuable. But any defender, I like guys at the top of the draft. I talked about him in my last video. Guys like Saddiq Bey, guys who can play out of Villanova, guys who can guard another team, best 6'7", 6'8" scorer, with ease, because we don't really have that on the team right now. We got Vic, who is a guy who can guard guards pretty well.
And Brogdon can check threes too.
For sure, yeah. Brogdon can check bigger guys as well. But wing wise, I haven't seen a lot of defense. I'm sorry.
In fact, I would actually say Brogdon is better suited to guard bigger guys because of how strong he is. He doesn't have super quick feet,
right?
But he's very physical, and he is a guy that you could throw at LeBron in spurts.
100%.
We just need another guy like Brogdon who can hit the 3-point shot, and doesn't need the ball in their hands too much, but a guy who can just harass the other team's best player.
100%. Do you have any trades that you could see the Pacers making in tonight's draft?
Yeah, there are several players that there are a couple of free agents that I have had my eyes on for a few years actually, who the Pacers could potentially do a sign and trade for on draft day. And again, if you really want to see my view on what the Pacers will do and should do, look at my YouTube channel. There's a series called The Island of Misfit Toys when it comes to the Pacers.
Yeah.
There are a couple of there's a 3-and-D wing who's kind of midway through the rotation with the Raptors. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson.
Right.
The Spurs used to have a guy back in the early 2000s, a guy named Bruce Bowen.
Yes, sir.
Who is in my mind the most fundamentally sound defensive player in NBA history.
Also,
he rode the bench for Pat Riley, and he rode the bench for Pat Riley in Miami for a while, and then he gets traded to the Spurs, and he turns into, in my mind, the best on-ball defender in NBA history, and he's got the championships to prove it.
100%.
And I see a lot of Bruce Bowen and Hollis Jefferson. I think I think with more shot attempts, I think Hollis Jefferson can develop into a solid 3-point shooter. Not Kyle Korver, but a guy who can hit the shots when you need him to.
Right.
And I think he's of all the potential free agents the Pacers could target in a sign and trade, this guy has the most upside defensively.
100%. I remember watching
I could see
Rondé
the
Hollis
Pacers
Jefferson.
giving up McDermott for him.
Yeah, I remember watching him play at Arizona in college, and thinking he's perfect for what guys in the NBA want to see out of a wing player with his stature and defensive ability. 100%. I would love to see Rondé Hollis Jefferson in a Pacers uniform. In reference to a couple to trades, how did you feel about last night? A little bit off topic, but Drew Holiday going to the Bucks. How do you feel like? What do you feel like that does for Milwaukee in the East, especially being a team that the Pacers would probably need to get through if we want to get to where we want to be in the conference?
I actually think that the Bucks are gambling a ton on this deal. They gave up a lot. They gave up
definitely.
several key. They gave up a lot of role players to get a 30-year-old All-Star, and unless this guy turns it.
I think the one that really hurts them. Sorry to cut you off. I think the one that really hurts them is Bledsoe. Bledsoe's the part that I feel like that's where they really might have taken a risk, because Bledsoe, I feel like, I mean, he's two-time. What is he? Two-time first team all defense too, just like Drew Holiday.
Yeah, the other thing that Bledsoe gives them is he's tough. Right. Drew Holiday, as good as he is not. He's a finesse player. He's not a gritty guy.
He's not.
He's not the guy. He's not an agitator.
I mean, he just won, what was it, Teammate of the Year award. He's a really nice guy on and off the court. He has great defense, but he has great defense, but he doesn't have that dog that Eric Bledsoe brings at all.
Yeah, and I think giving up DiVincenzo was a mistake because of his 3-point shooting and hitting the intangibles he brings defensively. I think losing George Hill in that trade was a big mistake too, because us Pacer fans know the types of intangible contributions he brings, not just on the court but off the court. He's a leader.
He's a leader,
and I'm pretty sure he led their team in 3-point percentage and was top 10 in the league last year. And if you're gonna, and the problem the Bucks had last year against Miami is they had no answer for Miami's 2-3 zone. And I know from coaching that the best weapon you have against any zone, but especially the 2-3, is the 3-point shot. And I just thought they gave away way too many shooters for this.
Yeah, they did. I think the one thing that I think they knew that giving away what they gave away was going to require something in return to want to get Giannis to stay. And the name Drew Holiday, obviously All-Star, previous All-Star, does make a lot of people's eyes glow up a lot thinking about him playing with Giannis and Chris Middleton. It's going to be a great defensive team. And I think Bogdanovich is where getting Bogdanovich from Sacramento is where I think they made up a little bit for the shooting they lost. How do you feel about Bogdanovich being part of Milwaukee's team?
He's honestly my favorite guy they got. If I'm a Bucks fan, I would be more excited about him than I would be about Drew Holiday, because if the Drew Holiday experiment fails, Drew Holiday is going to be a free agent next summer too, and they could potentially lose both him and Giannis in free agency.
I'll go as far to say this: after having to trade away 3 first-round picks along with Bledsoe, to get Drew, I'd go as far as saying if the Drew Holiday experiment fails completely, it's somewhat close to what happened with Brooklyn and Boston whenever basically Boston gave away Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and them, and Brooklyn got absolutely nothing but a slap in the face in return.
They got gutted.
Right.
And the hard part about the difference between Brooklyn and Milwaukee, and the reason this could be much worse for Milwaukee is a very small market. They're every bit as small a market as the Pacers. You wouldn't know it by the kind of success they've had, but they drafted really well. They got the Greek Freak. But if they lose him, forget losing Holiday too. But if they lose the Greek Freak next summer, that's it. They're a lottery team. I think that's the failure.
that'd be the failure in itself. I feel like that'd be the failure. I think getting Drew Holiday, if they gave away everything they did and got Drew Holiday, uh, they did that to try to keep Giannis in Milwaukee. If Giannis leaves the Bucks, Holiday can stay for all I care. If Giannis leaves, I feel like the Drew Holiday trade was a failure because they gave away 3 first-round picks that would be used in the future and possibly 2 more. Who knows? They got 2 trade swaps out of it as well.
Yeah, you know, one of my favorite GM in professional sports recently stepped down as the GM of the Chicago Cubs. And part of his name's Theo Epstein, and part of what makes him the best GM in professional sports, he doesn't just buy championships. He's not like the New York Yankees or the Clippers now. He builds sustained success. He when he leaves, the teams that he builds win for a long time after that.
It's all about the foundation.
Yes, he broke the curse with the Red Sox, but even after he left, they won another World Series. He just recently resigned from the Chicago Cubs, and they're in a position to continue winning. So I don't agree with the philosophy of buying championships. You don't want to buy. If you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, you don't want to buy championships. You want to buy wins. Right. And I think that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to struggle chemistry-wise, and they're going to struggle to put points on the board after losing all those shooters.
I think that also shows itself in things like Miami Heat going to the finals this year. Pat Riley, I know he's a team president, but what he built in Miami is sustainable. I feel like even with a guy like Jimmy as your first option, I think that winning with that team and that talent and that grittiness and that culture in general, that's what builds championships. Exactly. I feel like at the end of the day.
And to be honest with you, I think the Pacers are like that. I felt like they were kind of stuck in the 90s in terms of style of play when Nate McMillan was coaching.
100%.
But I also think that by, kind of branching out and trying new stuff, adding more modern day offensive sets, but also implementing more disruptive defensive schemes, maybe some 3-2 zones, some full court pressure, with the depth and talent that this team has.
Yeah,
I think it'll be a game changer.
The Pacers are always in the mix, always making the playoffs, and I think when we start really getting the ball rolling as an organization, it's going to be something great to see. And I feel like there's a finals championship in the distance. I can feel it.
Yeah, I can too, and I just that's why I don't think they're going to make any super big moves. I don't think. I've been watching the rumors with Victor Oladipo, and I think it actually irritates me the way that these false reports are coming out. I mean, every report that I've seen that has said Victor Oladipo is trying to leave Indiana, asking other teams to trade for him, they've come from unreliable sources. Right. And I wish people would check their sources and formulate their own opinions on what's real and what isn't.
And I truly, it irritates me too.
People are so reactionary now.
Yeah, it irritates me too. Not even just because of that, but the fact that it even puts the energy out there. Let's say Vic has been chilling this whole time, thinking he wants to stay in Indiana. The more and more the media is pushing this, it's causing the fans to clap back and say this and that about Vic. Makes Vic feel some kind of way. It just becomes full circle, and it starts to look like a lot of other fallout you see with star players in their team in the league nowadays due to the media.
And unfortunately, that's the price you pay playing in a small market.
Right.
I mean, you watch when Donovan Mitchell's contract is up with the Jazz, you're going to see exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
and I hope Donovan Mitchell takes the same approach Victor's taking, which is to stay positive and not take the attacks personally.
I'm probably the biggest Donovan Mitchell fan you'll find. I have 3 pairs of his shoes and magazines all over my room. Huge Louisville fan, and I can tell you right now, just based off a guy like Donovan's attitude, he'll definitely stay in Utah. I feel like he's got the mentality that he's very, very loyal, very, very loyal guy, and I think that's one thing that we didn't see come out. We never saw a definite "I want to stay here" from Vic, and I think that's all fans was waiting on. And as they continued to wait, they kept on getting more and more anxious, and the more anxious they got, the more impatient they got. And
Well,
finding out that Vic wanted to stay here all along.
well, I mean, that last report that came out last week, but that came out this weekend about, him asking teams to trade for him. I mean, look at it logically. Do you really think Victor Oladipo's agent, much less Victor Oladipo, wants to go play for James Dolan in New York?
No.
Why would if I'm an agent for a player of Victor's caliber, an MVP candidate when healthy and an all-star, I would be trying to keep my client as far away from James Dolan as possible.
Exactly. Everyone's doing that. I mean, every agent's doing that for that player at the moment.
And I as soon as I saw that rumor and I saw the Knicks mentioned in that, I knew that was BS.
100%. I don't know where a lot of these rumors come from. I mean, you saw Miles Turner on Twitter telling people he didn't know where that came from. Whenever it was rumored that teammates heard Vic saying, "I'll come get me" to other teams. I mean, it's crazy, and people really think that we wouldn't have found out about it until now if that even were the case. This would have been blown up way before now if that was really said by Vic to other teams.
Exactly, and that's the point I made. The Knicks, though they suck, are still the highest media market in the NBA.
Yeah.
If Victor Oladipo had said to a New York Knicks player at the end of a game, "Come get me," it would have been all over the New York Post the next morning. And the other point I'll make is the New York Knicks didn't qualify for the bubble, so the Pacers haven't played them for a little less than a year. Stories like that don't hold for a year. No way. And from what I've been told by people, and I've actually met Victor several times. I coached CYO basketball and taught youth martial arts at the church that Victor goes to mass at. And Vic, if you've ever spent any time with this guy, he is the most positive, uplifting, down-to-earth human being I've ever met.
That's why I hate it so bad that
he was mobbed by my entire Taekwondo class, and he signed every single autograph. We're talking 20 kids.
And that's why I hate this for him so bad that the media does this, because they portray, and I see so many fans attacking Vic online. They portray Vic to be this guy that's too big for Indiana, and he wants out. He wants to be a star. He wants a bigger market. It's ridiculous. He's a great guy, and everything I've seen about him, every time I've seen him online or anywhere, I've seen nothing but good things about him as a person on and off the court.
I had front row seats at Assembly Hall when he was playing at IU, and this guy has an unparalleled work ethic. He is 100%. Super high character, and I think a lot of these rumors are, and I'm not going to call any specific reporters out, but I think these are straight up lies. I think they're trying to get clicks. I think they're trying to sell subscriptions.
That's why a lot of times they won't even put a name on it.
And because of the lack of accountability in the national media, they can get away with it.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people out there, public figures, politicians, athletes, celebrities who take full advantage of how reactionary people are, and they start hate movements.
Yeah. And it's sad though. It's even like I said about just putting that energy out there. Like, even I've fallen for a few reports because even seeing the words Vic wants out, and seeing everybody else react the way they do, I see through it 90% of the time. But there's times where I'll see it and I'll be like, dang, Vic, that's really how it is. But it's tough that the media has that much power over, especially like you said, reactionary people.
And like you said, I mean, I'm not perfect. I would say, 90% of the time I've roll my eyes and laugh when I see these reports, but there have been times this offseason where I didn't know what was real and what wasn't, and then I did some digging and realized, oh my gosh, this person works for ESPN. This person, this person's entire salary is based on clicks, or this person gets commissions based on how many people subscribe to their subscribe.
And at the end of the day, the only people that really do know what's going on is the 12 plus players on the roster and the front office. That's the only people that really know what's going on at the end of the day. It's fun to speculate and stuff, but making concrete lies and rumors about these guys, that's where I feel like the line is drawn. There's no reason to do all that. It's great to speculate and come up with trade ideas and stuff, but putting words in the guy's mouth is just it's a lack of integrity coming out of a lot of these ESPN workers.
Well, I can say with absolute certainty that we are the only Pacers podcast that shares that opinion. Right. So if there are a lot of Pacer fans out there who agree with us, we're your voice.
100%.
I've listened to most of the other Pacers podcasts on Spotify, and they're all, saying trade Vic, trade Miles, blah blah blah, and I just don't. I don't see any benefit in doing that right now.
It's gossip, most of it. It's just gossip. It's what keeps a lot of these Pacers podcasts rolling, or what they would consider rolling. Their standard of rolling. It keeps them going. Is making up these. We need to do this. We need to do this. I try my best not to be overreacting to certain things. That's why I didn't get on here and make a video right after I saw Vic come up to the Miami Heat players. When I first saw it on live TV, saw Vic come up to the Miami Heat players and dap them all up, it looked as a fan very, very suspicious and very breathtaking. I was like, wow, because that really did look like it confirmed a lot of rumors about Vic wants to go to Miami. Vic wants to go to Miami. But the reason I wait to put videos out like that, you have to think, you have to do your research. It's not good to do what a lot of these Pacers podcasts do, where as soon as and I think that's the reason why a lot of times the rumors get me, is because as soon as I see a rumor, I need to make a video about this. Pacers podcasters need to take a step back sometimes and let things sit before they really get on there and start going in on players like Miles or players like Vic.
Well, and one other thing that the biggest I did a video about this on YouTube. The biggest benefit of staying measured and checking your sources. Look, anybody anywhere with a smartphone can predict what teams do in the off season if they do their homework. And I remember 2 days before the Pacers hired Nate Bjorkgren, who I still think is a great hire, I posted on my Twitter feed. There's another podcast called The Trade Deadline who I think we should reach out to collaborate with.
100%.
They're very good. They're very good. They're just like us, but but I commented on one of their Twitter feeds and said, keep your eye on Nate Bjorkgren. I heard the Pacers were impressed with him. Don't count him out. And 2 days later, they hire him.
Yeah, he was the first person that contacted me when they hired him. Too, I specifically remember that. It was a great hire. I agree, and I can't wait to see what happens in tonight's draft. So to conclude, this little pre-draft special we got for y'all, Coach Jay, what do you think the Pacers will do tonight, if anything, in the draft?
I don't see them acquiring any picks, but I do see them acquiring a player. The example of the type of deal I would look for is the same kind of deal that brought us T.J. Warren. That was a draft day deal last year. And to quote P.T. Barnum, there's a sucker born every minute. And, like I said, this year's draft will separate the good teams from the bad teams. And this is a draft where the bad teams are going to be super vulnerable. So I would look for the Pacers to do another hijacking similar to what they did with T.J. Warren. I would look for the two teams that one of the teams that I would look for the Pacers to. Obviously, Hollis Jefferson is a guy that I would be looking at. But a few other guys. The Spurs have a couple of free agents who are who the Spurs I don't think have the money to re-sign. Bryn Forbes is another guy that I like. But I think the Pacers are going to acquire a 3-and-D wing, whether it's Hollis Jefferson, Stanley Johnson, or somebody, through trade. I don't think, because of the salary cap going down because of COVID, I don't think they have the cap space to acquire anybody, through traditional free agency. But
Right.
I do think they'll acquire somebody via trade. And that, if anything, the salary cap going down gives the Pacers an advantage because Kevin Pritchard is a magician when it comes to the trade market.
Right, 100%. I could definitely see us doing another sign and trade for another player, like you said, like the TJ Warren deal. Some sort of hijacking in that way. But to be honest with Pacer Nation, this is a draft where it's really up in arms for me. There could be so many different ways that Pritchard goes in the front office goes with this draft. Really, there's no telling. We don't know what Bjorkgren wants specifically. We have a broad idea of what he likes to work with, but he has not coached his first year as a head coach yet, so we don't know what he wants specifically. It's going to be great to watch and fun to watch. If we were to trade into the top 10, I do think we'd be losing Vic or Miles. To get there, I don't think we will, and I honestly don't think you'll see us do much of anything in this draft. I think the front office is pretty set on Bjorkgren going in with close to the same team that we just had, healthy, hopefully, and see what he can do with more modern offenses and modern defenses to play with. But it's going to be very interesting. A very top-heavy draft, I'd say. After the top 5 or 6 players, I don't see a lot of guys that really pop off the chart to me. But it will be interesting to see where my guys from Louisville go. Shout out Jordan Wara, and shout out Jay Scrubb, who actually didn't play at Louisville, but I would love to see the Pacers get a guy like him. I mentioned him last video. He's a wing guy, 6'6", can play defense, can shoot the ball, can score the ball at all levels. He's he played JUCO ball this last year. I'd love to see us get a guy like him or any wing guy. Elijah Hughes, like I said, Elijah Hughes out of Syracuse. Any guy like that, a wing guy who can play defense and score is what I'd love to see us look for if we do get any picks in the first round. I doubt we will. But, yeah, it'll be great to see what happens.
Yep, no doubt.
100%, Coach Jay. It was great having you back. I know the fans are going to love having you back on here. We'll have great new content coming for you all soon. Interviews. We'll have probably a post-draft special too, an off-season preview video coming soon. Probably we'll record that after the draft, I'd say. But we'll see. We'll have some special guests on in the coming weeks. Great new content. Subscribe, like, and follow us at Pacer Station on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. In the description below, you will see Coach Jay's Twitter and Coach Jay's YouTube channel. Make sure you go check that out. Anything left to say, Coach Jay?
Like we said in this video, when you read rumors, check your sources. I guarantee you, if you do your homework, you can predict every move that your team makes.
You truly can. Just like Coach Jay predicted Bjorkgren in a way. The more homework you do about even if your team doesn't have a first round pick like the Pacers, we only have a second round pick. It's fun to speculate, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be speculation. With the more research you put in, the more concrete evidence you can get as to what your team's going to do. Like Coach Jay said.
Absolutely.
100%. Like I said, follow us at Pacer Station on all social media platforms. Subscribe below. Comment what kind of content y'all would like to see next. And I can't wait for tonight's draft. Pacer Nation, we deuces.